Is that your idea?
Yeah.
That was my idea. And we don't have a,
Look at Andy's recommendation, that's exactly the way I was thinking.
Yeah. And then
I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting of October 4th, 2022. If you could please stand for the pledge.
ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Devin?
Councilmember De La Rosa,
Here?
Councilmember Lavelle,
Here.
Councilmember Schickling,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ponce,
Here.
and for the record, Mayor Marshall is not present.
Announcements, written communications.
There is one written communication received for item number 8.
Department heads.
Good evening, Bob Greenlaw, Director of Public Works. Got 3 items for you tonight. Our mode shift study. The mode shift study is looking for some dates for community meetings. Tentatively, we are looking at 10/27 for a virtual meeting and 12/6 for an in-person meeting. These meetings would be a workshop format, not scheduled council meetings, but they're just for general input from the public to hear what the consultant will present about the mode shift, some concepts, and to receive input. We'll firm up those dates by the end of the week, okay, and get that out to everybody and get that announcement to the community. Pump out dock. The float is almost ready to launch from the vendor on the mainland. That was the wood and fiberglass structure that we designed and built. It will be then towed over to the boat yard for the installation here on the island of the equipment and the final finishes. If everything goes well, we'd like to launch it sometime in November. Okay, but we are also working on reconfiguring the landside hookups. So over there by the casino, there's some electrical panels and pump stations and all that. It's being reconfigured while we're waiting to get the other work done. And then the maintenance yard remediation action project. Work on the remediation work is preparing to mobilize at this point. And then we see that in full force hopefully this next week. Then what they'll do, the scope of work is to place imported fill, some drainage pipes, a retaining wall to contain all the site water on site, and then also treat that site water before it leaves the site and goes back into the creek. And then there'll be a concrete cap of regular impervious concrete in areas, but then pervious concrete, so that we don't have any impacts for additional storm drainage. It'll stay on the site. You know, and while this work is occurring, any floats that would normally be removed and stored in the yard will be on moorings out in the harbor. So if you see some additional floats that usually would be stored and in winter storage at this point in time, they'll be out there for, you know, a period of 4 to 6 weeks until we can go away, because that's the area that it gets stored in on the side of the maintenance yard shop. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Ornkar Starfin, Harbor Master. Just a short report. Since my last report on September 20th, Patrol moored 960 boats for a total of 3,094 nights, signifying a transition into fall as we see the numbers drop. We have seen an uptick in yacht club visits, though. They're taking advantage of the off-season rates. Currently, we're in the shoulder rate, which is you pay for 4 nights, get 3 free. Patrol did 19 warnings or advisements of municipal code violations, assisted the sheriffs 1 time, assisted Baywatch 3 times. 127 security patrols of our facilities were completed and 1 citation was written. like Bob said, as we get into the middle of this month, you'll be starting to see changes in the harbor. We'll see the Avalon boat stand will start to break down their moorings. We'll start to take the end float apart around the 13th of the month. And some of the floats you'll see actually start to take up some of the mooring area. Let's see, October 18th through 20th, I will be attending the Harbor Masters and Port Captains Educational Conference in Santa Barbara, where the theme is creating a sustainable future. The conference is the 50th and brings together marina operators who have common goals, and the event will feature a broad prospectus of industry experts and information covering key marine industry operations. Outside of that, do you have any questions? Thank you.
Hey, Orin, just a question on that conference, if you can bring back any info they have on the new Tier 4 engines, and then also just if you see any vendors that look like they may make a fit for the community and for the harbor in terms of sustainability, let us know.
I will bring back that information. There's going to be a lot of discussion regarding the Tier 4 and carb stuff, so I'll get that information.
Okay,
Thank
awesome. And then good luck with Buccaneers weekend. There's already a pirate ship out there this weekend.
Good evening, Grayson Klein, Sergeant, Avalon Sheriff Station. Since our last meeting, we've had 78 calls for service, 52 self-generated enforcement actions by the deputies. There have only been 3 arrests in the last 2 weeks, 1 for trespassing and 2 for drunken public, all tourist related. The deputies have issued 14 citations for miscellaneous vehicle codes, from running stop signs to unlicensed driver to driving on the wrong side of the road. We are prepared for Buccaneer Days. We have increased staffing. We've brought over a team, including a sergeant, to patrol that area along with our 4 resident deputies there, so we'll be very well staffed. The deputies have been over there for many years, so they're well versed in it, and we have a very detailed operations plan created by Deputy Adam Collette. And that's about it. We're transitioning also into a slow period. We've seen the arrests go down, and the enforcement on Front Street has been wonderful. The thefts have gone down. Over the weekend, I was sharing with the city manager, just our presence there had stopped 2 assaults that were getting ready to occur because the guys saw the sheriffs. We had spoken with them earlier, and they decided it would probably be best to go home rather than to stay at our hotel. So the enforcement has been really good out there and proactive. Any questions?
That's great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt Baker, Finance Director. Evening Council. There's the only way we can get TOT on those days somehow. But in general, August visitor-driven revenues are pretty positive. TOT was up 1.1%. While that's relatively flat, again, August of last year saw 40-50% gains on kind of the pre-COVID numbers. And more importantly, we weren't budgeting numbers to match last year. So again, these gains will help build reserves for capital projects and other needs. Other than that, finance is focusing on preparing the financial statements for the audit. We have auditors on site later this month. That's all I have.
Thank you.
David Hart, Community Service. The karate classes are back in full swing. So if you're looking to sign your child up for the classes, you can go to recreation.cityofAvalon.com and start taking the classes again. October 20th, we are bringing the Fall Carnival. We've rebranded the Fall Festival, and it is now the Fall Carnival. Thanks to a private donor, we've been able to do free booths for all the nonprofits. This will be strictly nonprofits down there selling, having carnival games, the pumpkin patch. And then also we have several acts. We have Roger Conley, who will be performing on stage. We have our local, what we call our park boys, the guys who do the skateboarding as well as rollerblading. Brian McCord, Sam Huerta, and Trevor Fansler, who will be doing some tricks on BMX. And so we'll have that on stage. And then we have Cirque Lunaire, that is an aerial act and like fire breathers. It's going to be quite exciting. It is the Fall Carnival, October 20th from 5 to 9 p.m. And then we will be doing Halloween. The Halloween parade is back and full swing. The school is completely on board. We will have all the kids coming through, but at the very end, we will also have an adult competition or a family competition, so families can come down together, because I know that was big for a lot of families in town, especially when we did the golf carts, and they love that, so they asked if they can kind of have a family competition. And we said, yeah, we're here to please the public. And then on top of that, after they come through for the parade, as they're out and about, right across over at Avalon's Kid Park, we are making Zombie Park. And there'll be fun houses in there. There'll be little booths that they can go in and get scared in, and we'll hand out trick-or-treat bags there at the Zombie Park. And that will go on after the parade. The parade lineup is at 4:15. The parade will start at 4:30. We'll be done usually around 5. And then you can come up this way to Zombie Park and have a good time. Is there any questions?
For the carnival, did you say the 28th or the 20th? I'm sorry.
For
The carnival?
the carnival is the 20th.
20th.
Yes.
And then the parade and stuff, all that is on Halloween Day.
That's all on Halloween Day.
Cool. Do you have any updates on the Christmas stuff?
Currently, right now, we're working on the financing of that right
Okay.
now. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Perfect. Thank you.
City manager report.
Thank you. Good evening, council. First of all, I will touch base. Fire chief regrets he couldn't be here. He's over town, but he did provide me with some points he would have addressed, and I'll give his report. Long Beach Fire Marshal was here last week, I believe, providing fire prevention classes for entire staff. Over the fire department, they have hired 4 new reserves, 3 males, 1 female. All have pretty quality training, medical training, EMT training, so we're happy about that. The entire department has had EMT skills testing this week, and LA County lifeguards are providing additional training, and we'll be back in 2 weeks to follow up on that. So fire department is getting all of their training in here this fall. He also wanted me to mention that the fire department will be hosting the chamber mixer for October. I believe it's the 20th, right? Isn't it?
27th.
The 27th? Okay, good. So it doesn't conflict with the fair. So they'll be hosting it up here. They're excited about that. We're happy to have that on City Hall property. This week, on Monday, we started our DMV signups for next week when the DMV is here. The DMV was here last week, getting all set up in council chambers, testing all their equipment. They were here better part of a day and a half. So we feel confident that they'll be able to hit the ground running early next week. Sign-ups, they have 2 different sets of them, one for the actual driving portion. There's still available time slots for that. The other sign-ups for everything else are currently filled, but we will put some information out for how we're going to handle walk-ups, or if there's vacancies or no-shows. We're sure we'll have some of those, but those filled up pretty fast, and I would urge everybody that has signed up for a time slot to, if you don't have it, whatever you're getting, we have the information. DMV has given us the information that you need to bring with you. We have it at City Hall at the front desk, or you can track it down online or call, and we'll try to get you in the right spot. So you come here with all your paperwork, so there's no delay. We want to try to get as many people in as possible, since it's been a few years since they've been here. And then last but not least, I just want to give a shout out to Efrain and Miguel and code enforcement. I mean, we all talk about thankless jobs, but there is no more thankless job than code enforcement. Those guys have been doing a great job year-round, but last few weeks they've been really ramping up, trying to address some of the vehicles that are not moving on the streets, trying to get those moved, trying to address those, and ramping that up right in front of the DMV. Getting here is no accident. That was done so we can get people aware you're in violation, but DMV is going to be here, come get everything straightened out. So there shouldn't be any excuses because everything is kind of set up for you. But I just wanted to thank those guys for what they do, and I know that they sometimes, oftentimes, get a hard job and have to deal with some difficult people out there, but they keep doing it. So thank them. Other than that, I think that's it. Thank you.
City Attorney?
Yes, just an introduction to a new face for the city of Avalon. As you know, Elizabeth Hall does our housing work, and occasionally when I'm on vacation, she will take my place. She is now the city attorney at Paso Robles, and so she'll be unable to make meetings when they've got a council meeting. They meet on the same day. So I'm introducing Melissa Crossway. She'll give you a little bit of our background, but on a rare occasion when I cannot be here, she will be attending your council meetings, and she may also fill in on, provide occasional reports. So Melissa.
Thanks, Scott. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be joining today. A little bit about myself. I joined CDK about a year ago, and I've been pretty lucky. I actually have devoted my entire career to municipal law. That's about 18 years. But I spent most of my time in-house offices. I worked for the city of Santa Ana for a few years as a deputy and then as an assistant. And then I worked in the city of Hawthorne as an assistant city attorney, mostly doing a lot of the planning, but it was a very small office. So I got to do a little bit of everything. When you're in-house, that happens. A little bit of elections law, a little bit of code enforcement, a little bit of records. My areas of expertise are, I would say planning, land use and planning, and ethics. I've done a lot of that in my career, but I've kind of been able to do a little bit of everything. And now with CBK, I'm doing quite a bit of housing and a lot more of elections and other issues. I speak Spanish fluently. That's my background is half Cuban, half Panamanian. And I'm barred in California, but I'm also barred in Nevada. I think that's it. It's probably all that's on the bio. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, and welcome to this crazy group. Council member reports?
I guess I'll go first. I had kind of an interesting couple weeks. I met with Julie Barreto with CR&R, and we had a really engaging conversation. I really appreciated her input and her insight with landfill issues and stuff like that. And one of the primary things is, one of the primary takeaways I had was that we all seriously need to get involved with recycling on the island. It's we don't have a choice, really. Excuse me. Because of the landfill situation, and recycling would greatly reduce the amount that we put into the landfill, as we know, is filling up. So we have to do that. And there was actually a new law that was passed that we have to start doing the organics, the composting kind of a thing. And they sent out the little flyers in the mail so you can sign up for new, new bins and the little buckets that you can put in your kitchen, for the organics and all that kind of stuff. Which, if you have not filled out your postcard, I encourage you to do that and send it in and get those bins. At the very least, get the organics that you can put in your kitchen. We're working with the larger places around the town that so that they can get the larger dumpsters for the organics, so you can just have the one in your kitchen and then dump it in there or something like that. And then we were just kind of brainstorming and talking, and she was showing me that if people didn't have a place to do stuff, then they're proposing an area. And I was looking at this little thing that she sent out, and I firmly believe that visuals help people a lot. So I talked to the city manager too, and we're gonna see if we can get vinyl printouts of the pictures of, because right now we just have the accepted, the universal sign for recycling and the guy throwing the trash. But if we can print these out with the pictures of what is acceptable as recyclable and what is acceptable as trash, and just put those on all of the existing brown ones that we have, because they're still in great shape. And then in addition to that, on the recycling side, I'd like to get some blue vinyl to go over the top, and on the trash side, the black. So people on the mainland are used to recycling. They have all kinds of different resources that we don't have available here, and I know we're a little behind the time here. And when we had the orange bag program, people would just go, oh look, free garbage bags, and they would just throw everything in there. So I encourage everyone in this town to take this seriously, and please do this. We need to extend the life of our landfill, and that will help greatly. So I appreciate your help with that. And then we had the 6th annual chili cook-off this past weekend, and I usually MC that, so I've been a part of that for 6 years, and it was a huge success this year. Lots of sponsors. The Rotary Club made a lot of money, which is just going to go right back into this community. The Rotary, as you know, is very, very active in this town, so that was good to see. And one thing that was really cool out of that was Josh Lowenthal, who is running for state assembly, was on the island, and he was canvassing, and he came by the chili cook-off, and I chatted with him for quite some time. And he said that one of his main goals is to make sure that the state knows that Catalina is special. It's different than the rest. And I informed him that when I went to the League of California Cities Convention, I went to the Rural Cities Conference or talk. And I said, well, you know, Josh, it's not just us. It's all of the little teeny-weeny towns that are in California. When they pass sweeping legislation and we try to say, well, that doesn't apply to us, and if you make that apply to us, it's actually a hardship on our city and it's too expensive. And so there's a lot of towns that are in that same boat. So he was grateful for that input, and he's going to do his best. So I told him he asked me if I'd endorse him, and I said yes. And so I encourage you, on your ballots, vote for him, because his father, Alan Lowenthal, in Congress, has done a lot for this town. And I mean, there are some, Patrick O'Donnell, and we all know and love Don Knabe. I mean, so politicians can really help us in this town. So everybody study up on your voters' pamphlets when they come. Make an informed decision, and please vote. That's about it.
Really cool part was that his aunt is actually, she taught at our school.
Here, yeah.
Ms. Lowenthal.
Right.
So that was really neat to see that connection.
Just had a couple of additional broadband meetings this past week. Also met with Josh Lowenthal, and he had a couple of his staff with him as well. So I did both a little bragging and a little begging, I guess you could call it if you want to, and took him out along Pebbly Beach Road. He was extremely impressed by what you guys had done. I showed him the pictures of the before and after of Pebbly Beach Road and what that was looking like, and so he asked me to give you Public Works especially kudos for that. Took him up above the city, took him up to the City Hall campus, took him up to Joe Machado. He was also curious about the field at Long Beach Unified, so we went up there. But had a good discussion, and his crew had some good ideas regarding both Coastal Commission and the CPUC on outreach areas that we may or may not be hitting yet. So we'll kind of pull those together and share them this week as well. But was thankful for the time. It's a fairly rare occurrence that even in an election cycle, we see representatives make time to come over here, let alone come over here for the whole day. He got over here in the morning early, attended a bunch of public events, did some canvassing, and then stayed in town until the last boat in the evening. And it's encouraging to me. I'm hoping he was talking about wanting to do a town hall potentially if everything goes well with the election for him, so we'll see what happens there. I also am endorsing him and am encouraged that we're just seeing a little more interaction with those that are looking to represent the island more often, which is great. So it's definitely an encouraging thing. And then just have Gateway City's Council of Governments tomorrow, so I'll have something hopefully to report back from that as well. That's it.
I was able to also meet with Josh, and we had a great conversation. I think the one thing that I wanted to make sure I voiced, and it sounds like he paid attention, which is great, was that I didn't want us to be forgotten. Whatever conversations were being had, I just want to make sure that the island was included. And in any of the bills that may come forward, for him to make sure that he communicates it to us, just so we can look over it and let him know how it could affect us or how it could not, and how we can maybe, you know, change things around if needed. So I'm glad he listened and voiced that to you as well. I don't have anything else to report, but I was able to meet with a group of Girl Scouts from Orange County. They were so much fun and were loaded with questions. So I was kind of just, it was rapid fire trying to answer questions, but they were a lot of fun. And they were brought over by one of our islanders, Adriana Tejeda, so that was a lot of fun. I believe they actually met with the firefighters as well.
And I was at my class reunion this weekend, so I have nothing, but it was a fun time. It was nice to go back up to Northern California. I haven't been up there in 8 years, so it was, my heart is here, but that's where I grew up, so. Oral communication. Member of the public may address the City Council at this time. No action will be taken on non-agenda items at this meeting. Speakers should limit comments to 2 minutes each.
Hello, Paul Birchall, Avalon Library. Good afternoon. I just want to talk about a few of the lovely events I have coming up. We're midway through our bookmark contest. I know it's exciting news. Till the end of October, please come by the library, grab a form, create a beautiful bookmark. Really, I've got 4 age groups that can win. We'll pick one bookmark from each age group, and we'll have something nice for them. I don't know what it is, but we'll have something. Then the winners from Avalon are then sent to the Board of Supervisors, along with folks from other communities, they're winners. And then the Board of Supervisors will pick, Janice will go and choose one. And it would be nice if Avalon won one year. So looking forward to that. So come and get your bookmark application sometime before middle of October. I'm running a book club on the last Tuesday of the month. It's going to be The Club by Ellery Smith. Also, I've ordered a bunch of copies of the anthology that has the short story Avalon, that the TV series they're filming is based on. It doesn't resemble the TV series at all, really, but it is a really interesting short story by Michael Conley. Speaking as a librarian, I think everybody should want to read that. Just a few other little events I'm doing. I do crafts on Tuesdays and Saturdays. I just decided to make flyers from them. I'm going to do a foam tree and fall colors on the 14th. Lots of tissue paper and glue. For teens, I have a decorate your own reading mug. They've sent me about 40 ceramic mugs and some ink. You can do some decoration. That's on the 11th. Going back into my cabinet from the 3 years that we were closed during COVID, I've got a decorate your own pencil holders. I'm just trying to get rid of those. But I've got some lovely pencils. They look really beautiful, and they're lovely balsa wood. And also a decorate your own tote bag that's going to come up on the 18th. So these are just little lovely things that you can come by on these dates. The flyers are going to be up at the post office, or you can pick up the schedule at the library. And thank you. That's really all I have right now. Thank you very much, everybody.
I did want to ask a question, if that's okay. I was just wondering if there's any update on your implementation of having the parent guardian.
We're still doing that.
Yeah.
If somebody comes by and wants to do their homework, if somebody wants to do, reading and useful library stuff, I'm not going to stop them. This is really just to put an end to folks like using the hand sanitizer bottles as squirt bottles, or, you know, bowling with the computer chairs, or, you know, the other things that rather naughty people do. The general thing is, yes, children should be accompanied with their parents. We can make arrangements, as I said.
Has it been helping? It's made a difference?
Well, I find it rather sad. I'm missing the kids very much. Let's just face it. But right now, I think it's important that I sort of reset how the library should be run as a library and not as a playground. So I'm not sorry I'm doing it. I look forward to welcoming the kids back very soon. And I'm not saying nobody come. I'm saying come. Just come and, you know, with your parents or with a thing to do that's not, you know, squirting the hand sanitizer bottles at me. So,
Thank you.
very good, thank you.
Do we have any comments, Devin?
No, sir, no comments.
We have a presentation this evening from Avalon Environmental Services with Julie Beretta. She's going to give us an overview of implementation of SB 1383.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. Happy to be here. I think the last couple times I've spoke with you were during COVID, so I was on the screen, so it's nice to be here. Just wanted to give an update on 1383. Had a debriefing with Mary to give her some background. The rest of you heard my speech, but thought it would just be good to kind of just refresh how we got here and where we are today and what are the plans for moving forward. Where do I point, Jamie? Should I use the computer? This isn't moving. Do I point backwards? Because it's not me. I can use the arrows on there. Oh, looks like it's frozen. There we go. Share and put it back. There we go. All right, thank you. All right. All right, so let's get started. So just to recap, so Mary kind of hit some of the main points. So Governor Brown signed the bill into law in 2016, but the final regulations were not approved until November of 2020 during COVID. And I love what I'm hearing about current folks running and hoping that they realize the difference between the island and other rural communities. There were several legislators that tried to get CalRecycle to postpone implementation because of COVID. The initial start date was set for this year, January 1st of 2022. During 2021, to no avail. It did not even make it to the governor's desk to be signed to at least postpone. Most cities were looking for hopefully a year delay, not indefinite, but just to give cities back time to get on their feet and to get back to some normalcy. Unfortunately, that did not happen. So with that being said, as part of the legislation, there was also 2 criteria that rural or small cities could possibly file a waiver from having to implement organic recycling. One being high or elevation is what they referred to as, so some of the mountain communities, and then the other one was low population. So we thought, oh great, let's go ahead and move for the process. The criteria for low population was cities or towns had to be less than 7,000 residents, and disposal was tied to a specific year, less than 5,000 tons of annual trash being disposed of. And in the regulations, they used the year 2014. Well, unfortunately, CalRecycle denied the city's request to have a waiver because during that 1 year, 2014, the city generated a tad over 5,000 tons, Although we helped work with the city to show data, we did an 11-year average of disposal, and the city usually generates just over 3,000 tons, but that 1 year was an anomaly. Public Works staff and others pulled together, also realized that during 2014, the city had, I think it was almost 70 building permits pulled. On average, it's 6 to 7. So it was obvious there was an anomaly that year, and CalRecycle pretty much just said, sorry, it's in the approved regulations, it's in the Senate bill, we have to go with the year, and we had to move on. So the next process was that CalRecycle suggested to the city of Avalon and other cities that were hoping to get a waiver and didn't get it, or had not been ready to implement organics effective January 1st, to move forward with Senate Bill 619, was basically a waiver to delay implementation that would also protect the cities from being fined for not starting the program. If you remember, or if you're familiar, when AB 939 started in 1989, cities that didn't divert 50% by the year 2000 were potentially eligible to be fined $10,000 per day. And so this was the same thing to follow suit. If you were a city that just said flat out, well, I'm not doing it, we're not doing organics recycling, the state could fine cities $10,000 per day until they implement the programs. So we went through the process. In March, the council approved the documents that the state needed, and I've been working diligently with the city to now put together our action plan. So part of 619 was we had to put together a corrective action plan, and with a very strict timeline of when we were going to implement organics, which takes us to the next slide. And as Mary mentioned, everyone got the postcard. So part of our process and timeline was we mailed the postcard asking residents, giving a little brief summary of why we had to do this, and then asking them to select the cart size or container size. And we are still accepting them. As Mary had mentioned, please still send them back. We're not going to deliver containers until the last week of October, so please mail them back. I will share that we've had over 100 responses, and out of the 100 responses, only 2 have said, yeah, I don't have room at all, and I'd like to maybe do the recycling depot that we had talked about. And the state liked that as well, because I said, the people that we're talking to at the state have never been to the island. They don't understand the space constraints. They don't understand. I, even for my first time when I was here last week, I've been coming to the island quite frequently, doing audits and meeting with folks. Bonita Way, specifically, where the driver has to walk up flights of stairs to get containers and walk them down. Visually, they don't know. And so, anyway, I wanted to bring kind of show and tell the pail, which was one of the options. And I was telling Dave and Denise, I would say the pail is actually probably a little more secure. Even on the mainland, we don't use these for curbside collection. They just use them in their kitchen and then they dump them into the 35-gallon container. But we wanted to do something unique for Avalon, knowing that there are space constraints. And I'm happy to see that some of the residents put 2 or 3. We're okay with that. If you want 2 or 3 because you think you have a bigger family and you might, empty your produce and maybe vegetables that have gone bad and you want to put it out, by all means. If that works better for a resident rather than the 35-gallon, that's what we want. What I wanted to share is they have this, as you can see, they snap very well. And so this is just about a 2-gallon container. But I was telling them that I think that this probably obviously seals the regular containers that people have for trash. They don't snap closed. So these are actually secure for any food scrap. So if you haven't ordered it, we ask you to order it. And we're going to continue to do some outreach that I will share, and I'll kind of just talk about it. As I mentioned, so I've been coming on a regular basis. I have been working with multifamily and commercial properties, same thing, to determine what size containers they need. The legislation does allow for a couple types of waivers that the city can issue to commercial properties or possibly multifamily. And that is de minimis, meaning that if a generator has less than 20 gallons of organics per week, that they could get a waiver that's good for 5 years. And then also for physical space constraints. If there's just absolutely nowhere to put a cart that's somewhere safe that a cart can be placed, the city can also issue a waiver. CRNR is doing that on behalf of the city. I'll go out, make the visit, make sure I have to take photos, I have to document it, and then we keep a file, so when the state says, okay, do you have any waivers? And we say, yes, we have 2, then we have to show backup of why we issued those waivers with photos that go attached. So that's been, everyone I would say though has been very receptive, and maybe I will also say on the boat over, I was tallying the cards as I was going through and counting the containers, and I had several handwritten notes that said, it's about time, thank you. And so there were actually some positive notes from people that seemed to be excited about getting the recycling containers. So I thought that was positive. So I wanted to share this, and so this is still in the conceptual stage. I met with the Island Company, and they have offered a space. It still has to go through approval from the board, but you can see that building in the screen is Chet's Hardware. So right when you pull into the plaza, there's that light pole, and there's also a newspaper stand that's not being used that they could relocate. But they have offered that area to us where we would construct an enclosure. It looks like a trash dumpster, but they're lightweight aluminum lids, single lids, and inside we would put the separate 90-gallon carts for recycling or organics. We don't know how many we need. We don't necessarily know the size yet. We really wanted to get the feedback from the residents to see who would want to go. But as I mentioned, so far, only 2 people said that they didn't have room and they'd rather go to the depot. So still want to get some feedback from folks, see what they think, but they will be labeled very clearly. This is just bigger for you to show. I had shared it with Mary when we had met, and I had given her, because she had the idea about the city containers. But anyway, so this is something that will also go out, and just want to keep it here for a second. You know, we're going to do some additional outreach, and some of the suggestions I got from the city staff is magnets. People still like magnets, and we can have you put it on the fridge or on the oven, wherever you have a magnetic surface, just as a reminder of what goes in the recycling container and what goes into the organics container. So this is still in the works, and the next time I come, we'll provide more of an update once we see what the need is and how big the structure needs to be. And like I said, Cal Recycle, at least that was an extra kudos that they had liked, that the city was doing some additional options after we tried to explain to them the unique way of living on the island, I guess, for better words. So the next steps are, and again, all this, as I mentioned, was listed in the corrective action plan that we had to do for the state, is that the carts and pails are going to be delivered on Wednesday, October 26th and November 2nd. Those are the days that we don't run an actual trash route, so that's when we have the free time, so we picked those dates. We thought that would be the easiest. If we can knock it all out on the first day, we will, but I think we're gonna probably need the 2 days to get the containers delivered. As I mentioned, we're gonna do some additional outreach through the city's website, through our website. We're gonna do some Facebook posts and other social media outlets, and everything will be in English and in Spanish. And then also when the containers are delivered, there will be some literature that also says, just a friendly reminder, what goes where. Here's what you put into each of the containers. So the target is to deliver, as I mentioned, the last Wednesday of October, the first Wednesday of November, and then new service would start November 7th. So here's what's different and unique. Today, everyone puts everything in the containers, everything goes in the same truck, and it goes to the facility. Per new legislation, everything has to be what we refer to in our business source separated, meaning separate trucks. So we're gonna restructure the service. It's still gonna be 2-day-a-week pickup, but we're gonna restructure it. So on Monday and Tuesday, which is our 2 first day of the week routes, Monday and Tuesday will be trash day. So if you still have Monday pickup, that'll be your trash day. And then your second pickup would be Thursday. That's gonna be your recycling and organics day. So on that Thursday, you're only gonna put out your recycling, not your trash. Because really, you still have the same amount of waste. We're just asking you to separate it into the different containers, which is part of the law. And again, we know it's gonna take a while to get people used to it. We'll continue to do outreach and education. I'll be coming out, which is also a requirement of the state, to do what they're referring to as route reviews, or layman's terms, lid flipping. We'll all come out and look through some of the lids, and if we see some recycling that's maybe in the trash, we'll put a little tag that says, hey, friendly reminder, please make sure to put bottles and cans in the recycling container. And so that's a whole process that will happen for the next couple of years. But anyway, that's kind of where we're at today. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of questions, and like I said, if there's even town halls or other events, gosh, I'd love to come back. Even if I had a booth and I could talk to people that wanna come up, that would be great. But at that point, that's really all I have for you today, but happy to open up to any questions you might have.
I have a question.
Yes.
I live in an apartment.
Yes.
How are we breaking that down as to?
So question for you, did you get a card yourself, or did it probably just go to the?
It went to my P.O. box.
It went to your P.O. box, okay. So those are the ones that I'm still kind of going out and visiting. So it depends on what you have. Can you share, do you have dumpsters? Or do
We
you
have dumpsters.
You have dumpsters. So typically, if there's space in your scenario, what we're doing is, I would love to give every tenant a pail, and then next to your dumpsters, add a recycle cart and an organics cart. So then you would just take your pail down and dump into the organics cart. So that would be the plan for apartments or other duplexes, fourplexes, that type.
So when we talked about
Yes.
my particular
Mhm.
situation, because I'm in an apartment as
Yep.
well, and where our trash area is, we have a little ledge where we used to put the recycling and stuff like that. And Julie said, well, get the organics and then just put those out there. So with the collectors, they would just then take our pail and dump it into a larger
set it back on the
receptacle
ledge.
in their
Mhm.
thing, and then set it back on the ledge. So I'm
Yes.
gonna put my name on it,
Yeah.
so I know which one's mine.
That's what I would do too. I mean, obviously, once you have it, it's yours. Yeah, you can put your address. I'm glad you mentioned that. Put your address, put your name, whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with. But it's going to be unique, and it's going to take some time. And my hope is that when more people see it, and then if they didn't maybe respond to the postcard and they say, hey, what's going on there? Or what are you doing? That's why I need the opportunities to be probably a little more visible. If there's events, when David was mentioning about some of the community events and booths, and I wrote some notes to follow up with him. I know he had mentioned that there's booths for maybe some nonprofits. Although I wouldn't have games, I'd love to come talk about recycling. And so those are just the things that if you think there's opportunities that I could come out and be present at. You know, we do these community events on the mainland. In Artesia, they have a diversity festival. And that was the same hours, 5 to 9. And we had a booth, and we had a lot of people come out, and probably about 100 people, and ask questions about recycling. So would love to be able to get out.
And then another question.
Yes.
I run a hotel. How is that going to be? How would we separate on that?
Kind of the same exact thing. So for for hotels and commercial, it's going to be the same thing. So really what we're trying to encourage folks is, depending on how many dumpsters you have for trash, not sure if you have one for recycle, but same thing, we're doing the same size containers, 35 gallon for recycle, 35 gallon for food waste. If you wanted to use these kind of pails in the kitchen of the hotels or places, however they want to move the stuff, and then we would put those next to the dumpster. So that's how we're doing it in the downtown area, the 35 gallon organics carts, replacing the old orange bag that they used to put the organics into. Now you keep it separate and you put it into the separate container, not into the trash anymore. So it's really the same concept for residential and commercial. Everything has to be kept separate.
Okay, my concern is getting guests to separate their trash in their room, so it.
Yeah, so, okay, so I'm glad you asked that. That's not a requirement for individual rooms. It would be more if you serve food.
Okay,
So if
we-
you don't
we-
serve
we
food,
don't do
then you
food, so-
don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about it. But if you notice, you go to most hotels, any other hotels, you'll see that sometimes even in the rooms now, they have these little trash cans and they have a divider and have says recycle. I would still try to encourage folks to do that, and I try to do the right thing, and, separate it and put my bottles and, if you have, I don't know if it has a newspaper anymore, but if you did, or paper, any paper, to try to keep that separate. But no, if you do not serve food, then you don't have to participate in it. Yeah.
Do we have a plan on how to get the pails to the tenants of the apartment complexes?
So that would be good. So I did have a meeting with the Island Company, and for the Island Company properties, they had asked me to deliver the pails to them, and they would distribute. But I would love suggestions on the others, and I don't know, and maybe, Dave, this is a question for the city. I don't know if it's possible for us to bring some supplies to you, or they can come up to our office and pick them up on Pebbly Road. I think that's always an office, because that's where they're gonna be stored, everything will be there, but I don't know if there's an opportunity to have some supply here at City Hall that they can pick up, or another location. But that is gonna be the difficult part, is to say, okay, where do they go pick it up? But definitely they can come to the landfill and pick it up from the office.
I'm afraid that some people may not pick it up, so I don't know if there's a way to make a list of the different complexes we do have, and contacting them and maybe making a plan of, I don't know, maybe them picking it, yeah.
And Carmelo can deliver to those too, if we just know who it is and who's like gonna receive them, and then would help distribute them.
Right.
Carmelo's happy to do that, because he's gonna be doing all the deliveries, so he's fine with that.
And I think we can identify all of them and see if we can't get a point of contact, so at
Mhm.
least we're directly speaking with somebody there
Yeah.
at each facility or at each location.
I like the little bucket. I think
I do too.
that's great.
And you know, we don't, like I said, we don't do this on the mainland, but we were trying to be creative and think, okay, if this works, and like I said, I mean, please spread the word. If they need more than one, we are okay with that. We're fine with that.
I did get a couple questions from Annie, so.
Okay.
One of them is, are small containers needing plastic?
Needing plastic?
Yeah, that's what she wrote, I'm not entirely sure.
You mean a
Oh,
bag?
I'm assuming that's what she meant.
Okay, so let me talk about that. So these are dishwasher safe, or, you know, soap safe, whatever. You always prefer no bags, because Mary said it. Oh, it's a trash bag's a trash bag's a trash bag. Once you say bags, a lot of people don't follow the rules and use compostable, although you can get them from Amazon, and I'm sure probably Chet sells compostable. We prefer no bag, but you can use compostable bags or brown paper bags. You can line it with a brown paper bag. So that is, we'll accept them, but we try to encourage no bags, because the right bags don't always end up in there.
Okay, her second question would be, how do we plan to educate the children?
So I have a meeting with the school district, so we're having a whole separate meeting, because the school district also has to be part of that process, and do their own recycling and possibly recover some of the food that doesn't get eaten from the cafeteria. So I'll be meeting with the school district separately, and again, if they have any, however they want to educate, whatever, I'd probably leave it up to them to see what they think is the best way to educate the kids.
Okay. and
Coco
then-
Melon. They do, they have the recycling, yes, yes, yes.
That's why I laughed, because I know that song
Yeah.
by memory, all of it. Her last question, or it's actually a comment, she said, some did not receive the postcard, including herself. Is there a way of maybe calling in?
Oh yeah, definitely can call in, and we did put some on the counter, so there's some here at the counter here. I left some at the post office, I gave a stack to the Island Company, so yeah, so either they can come into City Hall, or if they wanna call the number and report what container size they want, and just give us their location, upper, lower, front, back, and the address, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So does your little bucket there have pictures of what can go in there?
it sure does.
Yay.
Got a label on the front, and so like I said, it's meats, bones, breads, what do you call it, fruits, produce.
I was shocked to find out that you can, like pizza boxes and paper plates that have food on them. I was always super confused about, is that recyclable? Is this trash? What is this? Well, it's organics trash.
So that is
recyclable.
new. So in the past, they would say, oh no, if it's got grease on it, then it's gotta go into the trash, but now that becomes organic material. So that is on the label as well, soiled paper, not styrofoam. Styrofoam is trash, but soiled paper can go into the organics.
Oh, what about foil?
Foil is not recyclable.
So it's trash.
A lot of people think it is, it's trash.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
The only questions I had, one was, is there still staff at CRNR that's gonna be doing separating on-site?
So.
And is that getting kind of,
So that's a good question. So everything has to be collected separate. All the recyclables, we're gonna put them into a compactor, and those are gonna be shipped to the mainland, and they're gonna be recycled at my office where I reside, at our corporate office in Stanton. That's where we have our big MRF, where we'll process and sort all the recycling, and then it gets baled and shipped off and made into new and better things. And then the compost, the organics, we have composting set up at the landfill, and that will be chip grinded, and then we use it for landscape of the landfill. So it's actually help for, not on top of the landfill to cover the waste, because that's no longer allowed, but we use it for cover. And then we also will have, and we do that today, but we'll do some more advertising for compost giveaways, where residents can come up to the landfill that need it, even if they only have a few, some pots on patios, whatever, but residents can come to the landfill and pick up compost for free. And we'll do some education and outreach on that.
Very cool. And then a question that just came up in the bigger discussion, I was encouraged when I heard about the plan potentially for the space in the plaza, and I think in my head I was picturing potentially something larger, similar to what you would see on the mainland, and was hoping that that would actually help cover some of the CRV requirement from Vaughn's and looking at that issue. But it doesn't look, based on what you were showing originally, that that's the case, so.
No, we'll take that back. And that's something, I know I've heard that at a couple of the meetings I've been at, and I'll be quite frank, I was gonna talk to our owners about it. I don't know if that's an opportunity. So there's no requirement specifically on a grocery store that has to take back aluminums. That's not the state requirement. Anybody can start up a recycling center and do CRV redemption or buyback. So anyone can start a business on the island if they wanted to, but you have to be certified and approved by the state of California. So it's not necessarily a requirement on the grocery stores, although that's a common place that you will see them and find them. I will tell you that I don't know why with COVID, you used to see one behind every grocery store. They were kind of like a storage container, right?
Yeah.
And then they would have their scales and they would have, their cash, and they'd pay you right there.
Right.
Most of those are gone and closed. So I don't know how COVID impacted that, but most of those have closed down. So I know that's always something here. When I started in the business 30 years ago, at some of the small landfill sites, there was a buyback, but then you have to have a scale, and then you have to have the cash on site, and then there's a whole security process that goes with that. But I was gonna look into that because I'm not sure where else you could do that other than, Mary and I talked about too, that you take your bottles and cans to Long Beach and get your redemption there. So
If there are any entrepreneurs out there listening, where would they go to the state to?
Cal Recycle, the
Cal
Cal
Recycle?
Recycle website, and there's a section that says certified recyclers. And there's an application they would fill out and go through the process. But anyone could do a buyback center. You just have to go through the process, but there's a lot of reporting and stuff that you have to get back to the state. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of fraud. I'm sure you saw the news, stuff that came from Arizona and Nevada coming into California, bringing recyclables outside of the state and cashing in on some of our money. So that could be what's changed folks to manage the process, because the reporting's become a little cumbersome, is what my belief is. I don't know that to be a fact, but that happens sometimes.
And then finally, I know you mentioned that there can be waivers for certain reasons, but I would assume in the best interest of both the community and the health of the landfill that we wouldn't necessarily want to have those waivers. So I don't know what people's thoughts are on that, of requiring that you have to have something even as small as that pail to be able to do. Is that something that we can look into and or do?
It's totally up to the city. I have some cities on the mainland that said they will not issue waivers.
Yeah.
That they've taken a hard stance. Totally up to the city.
Might be something to bring back for discussion, if we can.
Yeah.
I appreciate that everyone does have small houses, but also that is having lived in small houses and galley kitchens all my life, that is a small piece of equipment. And there's also, other trash cans you can utilize in your house that would help you with the same space saving that you could do with that, which I think makes sense that it should be, at least that should be required at the minimum.
agree.
The other stuff I
Absolutely.
understand outside, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm wondering, and Dave, maybe this question is for you, the setup that they might have on the plaza with those new trash cans, could we possibly do that on one of our city properties as well? Could we have different locations?
I mean, I don't know that anything certainly prevents having different locations. We looked at a number of different locations, and they came up with that one just from the convenience standpoint of having that somewhat centrally located. But no, I think if we talked about originally having something up here anyway.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. I'm assuming
Definitely.
the more places, the better.
Yeah, definitely.
Great.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public, Devin?
No, sir.
So at any time, say, somebody moves here in next June, they can reach out
They
and
just call and we
get their
deliver them
stuff?
containers. Yes,
Perfect.
yes.
We're starting November 3rd, is that what it said?
So containers will be delivered Wednesday the 26th and November 2nd, and then the following Monday would be the day it starts.
Awesome, so should we do like a social media blast
Oh,
to
yeah.
remind everybody?
Oh, definitely, and we
Okay.
are, and what you could do is, and I guess I'll leave that to Dave to share with you individually, whatever we give him to use on the city's website. Yes, I highly encourage if you have your own social media pages, Instagram, Facebook, share it and put it on your stuff as well. That would be great.
Thank you.
Can we please just ensure it's both in English and Spanish? I know
Definitely.
the postcard was not, so.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Julie.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
Consent calendar.
Thank you. The following items are on your consent calendar this evening. We are seeking approval of the minutes from the September 13th, 2022 special council meeting and the September 20th, 2022 regular council meeting. Approve the expenditures, the warrants expenditures for September 12th, 2022 through September 23rd, 2022 totaling $1,139,956.85. Our ongoing findings to continue to hold remote teleconference virtual city council meetings, asking council to determine that COVID-19 state of emergency as proclaimed by the governor still exists and has been considered by the city council in deciding to continue to have teleconference meetings, and that state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing in connection with COVID-19, and that as a result of the COVID-19 emergency, meeting in person would present imminent risk to the health and safety of attendees. We have the GAN appropriations limit, asking council to adopt the resolutions approving the annual GAN appropriations limit calculation for fiscal year 22 through 23. Adopt ordinance, item number 5, adopt an ordinance relating to the advertising of matter and posting on public property. This is the second time it's been before council, asking to adopt the ordinance for the Avalon City amending Chapter 5-1.01 of Title 5 of Avalon Municipal Code relating to advertising matter and posting on public property. And finally, on the consent calendar, adopt an ordinance replacing the municipal code regarding noise. That is, adopt an ordinance repealing and replacing Title 5, Chapter 5, Article 13 of the Avalon Municipal Code regarding noise.
I'll move to approve items 1 through 6 on the consent.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Schickling?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ponce?
Aye.
4 ayes, 1 absent.
General business.
Thank you. First item under general business is before you. You have an easement agreement or actually a request to authorize the city manager to execute an amendment, an extension to the existing easement agreement with Catalina Island Company for use of Pebbly Beach Road. I would just add, this is, as most of you on council recall, this is an ending of a 10-year agreement that we have with the Island Company. It ends in December of this year, so we have a couple months left on it. I've had some very productive conversations with the Island Company, Mr. Rusak. We feel that some amendments are warranted in this agreement, but those amendments are really updating the amount of the contribution between the parties, since this is 10 years old, and also giving a little bit more flexibility to both parties going forward, because as council knows that the city wants to be in a position that if funding, for example, becomes available, that we as a city might be able to get, we want to be in a position to have language that's appropriate for us to get the grant funding, to have at least maintenance and control over that roadway, to get any grant funding that would come up. We feel that some changes in the language would give us that flexibility and also give the Island Company the security that they would need going forward. I've found them very easy to work with on this, and I appreciate their involvement. And finally, I would just add that the next easement, we're not looking to have a specific time period. It would be basically in perpetuity unless there'd be an out clauses for each side, rather than bringing it back every number of years, because one of the difficulties or possibilities of being a difficulty in going for a grant is that if we have For example, now, the easement ends in 2 months. That doesn't give us much to go on when we're applying for that. So those are really the changes we're looking at. And then once that final document is developed between the parties, we'll get it to council, legal counsel to review, and come back to council just to have it brought to your attention. If there are any questions on that.
David, the only thing I would add is that we have checked with CIRA, our insurer, as well as the excess carrier, and they are in agreement that they would approve the extension of the agreement. Remember, we purchase certain insurance on the market to cover accidents beyond what CIRA provides, and so everyone's in agreement that that will continue.
That's right. Thank you, Scott. And we have checked with our current carrier that, assuming we just keep going forward with that, and we've received no negative feedback from them.
And so you said that the Island Company is also monetarily responsible for some things?
In the existing agreement, the Island Company was monetarily responsible for some things, but there was some language, and I can see at the time why the language was originally put in. It had some language about they're responsible for the certain first dollar amounts going forward, and it has to be that they would hire a contractor. And for example, if I can just use the last hurricane or storm event we had, our Public Works Department was out there immediately that Sunday. They were out there that weekend. They're experienced doing this. They did it. We didn't have to hire a contractor because our guys can do it better and quicker. So we wanted to take that language, that restriction out, that we can provide that service, and then we can still, that first dollar amount would be provided by the Island Company, and then the city would take on the balance.
So where I was going with that was if the new one is in perpetuity, so would it be dollar amounts or would it be percentages? And if it were dollar amounts, could it be looked at later, for inflation or whatever?
Right. Yeah, that's a great point. There will be language in there that we'll look at it. We'll have time demarcations in there as we go through it that we look at it, so it doesn't say the same amount for 10, 30 years down the road.
Okay.
Yes.
Any comments from the public, Devin?
No, sir, we haven't received any comments.
Any other comments from council?
The only other question I have is just in that, to also review if there is improvement made upon the road, that if the agreement is to end, that we look at if there needs to be some exchange of funds received back from the Island Company for the improvements made by the city and/or grant funding.
Okay, yes.
Otherwise, I'll move to authorize the city manager to execute an amendment and extension to the easement agreement with the Catalina Island Company for use of Pebbly Beach Road.
I'll second.
Any other comments?
No.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Schickling?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ponce?
Aye.
4 ayes, 1 absent.
Next item, you have item number 8, is a request to fill 2 planning commission vacancies. As council recalls, we have 1 seat and 1 additional seat to sit as the alternate on the planning commission. At this time, I think a few months back, we discussed filling the alternate. I think the plan was not to. At this time, because of the requirements of planning commission members to recuse themselves based on proximity to the project and how often it's been happening. And sometimes we've been having 2, sometimes 3 members have to recuse based upon the location. We'd ask to fill the alternate if council's so inclined. So we would ask discussion of the applications received, consider the recommendation of Mayor Marshall. I believe everybody received that communication today, and to make the appointment for the individual to serve as the planning commissioner and the alternate. And if council chooses to do this, we would seek to have that person in place for the October meeting.
Any discussion, council?
I just received a comment from Annie. She wrote, I typically interview the applicants, but if we feel that's not necessary, we can move on.
And Annie's recommendation was to make Jessica the planning commissioner and
Right.
Armida the alternate. And when I was talking to Dave earlier today, it looks like the alternate would have to be here probably for one item on each agenda. So it's like covering us and making sure that we have.
So the alternate would be that, have to go to every meeting?
Yeah,
That's what you're
because
saying?
it looks like with things coming up, members
Right.
would have to recuse
Right,
themselves.
because
So.
if they have to recuse
Yeah.
themselves,
Yeah.
then that person has to be here
Mhm.
to
Right,
step
to
up
step up.
Right.
and not just jump off their couch and fly down here.
Right.
Yeah. And it's good just for the sake of learning kind of what is happening on the
Yeah.
Right.
commission anyway, so. Yeah, I'm okay with making a motion to approve Jessica Romero as the planning commissioner and Ruth Armida as the alternate. And I thank them both for being willing to give their time and effort and energy.
Absolutely, I'll second that.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Schickling?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Ponce?
Aye.
4 ayes and 1 absent.
Any other business, sir?
No other general business, no.
And with that, we're adjourned.
Night, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you for making it an easy meeting.